When you imagine the mind of a theoretical physicist, you might picture someone isolated, quietly scribbling equations behind closed doors. But Stephen Hawking wasn't just a physicist. He was a cosmic storyteller, a man who gazed into the abyss of black holes and managed to explain the universe to the world while trapped in a body that slowly betrayed him. Born on January 8, 1942, in Oxford, England, exactly 300 years after the death of Galileo, Stephen Hawking seemed destined to live in the realm of the stars. He grew up in a family of academics, where dinner conversations were filled with books, science, and curiosity. He was brilliant, but not always exceptional in school. Teachers often described him as lazy or distracted. Yet even as a teenager, Hawking showed signs of a powerful intellect. He built computers out of recycled parts and could solve complex mathematical puzzles in his head. In 1959, at just 17 years old, Hawking entered University College, Oxford, where he studied physics. There, he coasted through most of his coursework, finding the material too easy. He rarely studied, preferring parties and rowing over textbooks. Still, he graduated with honors and moved on to Cambridge for his graduate studies in cosmology. And then, everything changed. At the age of 21, Hawking began experiencing strange symptoms: clumsiness, slurred speech, unexplained falls. After a series of tests, doctors diagnosed him with ALS, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, a motor neuron disease. They gave him just 2 years to live. For most people, such news would mean the end, but for Stephen Hawking, it marked the beginning. Initially, the diagnosis devastated him. He fell into a deep depression, questioning the point of finishing his studies or planning for a future that might never come. But gradually, something shifted. He met Jane Wilde, a fellow student who would become his first wife. Her unwavering belief in him gave him purpose and strength. He returned to his research with renewed determination. As his body weakened, his mind grew sharper. He once said, "My expectations were reduced to zero when I was 21. Everything since then has been a bonus." Confined to a wheelchair and gradually losing the ability to speak, Hawking focused on the one thing ALS couldn't touch: his intellect. In 1965, he earned his PhD with a groundbreaking thesis on the singularity at the center of black holes. His ideas were bold, unorthodox, and brilliant. He proposed that under general relativity, the universe must have begun as a singularity, a point of infinite density and gravity. This meant the Big Bang wasn't just a theory about the universe's origin, it was a mathematical necessity. Suddenly, Stephen Hawking was a name to be reckoned with in the scientific community. Throughout the 1970s, he continued to revolutionize cosmology. Perhaps his most famous contribution came in 1974, when he combined the principles of quantum mechanics and general relativity to propose a stunning idea: black holes aren't entirely black. Contrary to the belief that nothing could escape a black hole, Hawking theorized that they actually emit radiation due to quantum effects at the event horizon. This radiation, now known as Hawking radiation, meant that black holes could eventually shrink and evaporate completely. The discovery sent shockwaves through the scientific world. It challenged fundamental ideas about information, entropy, and the nature of reality itself. Hawking had merged two of physics' most powerful, but seemingly incompatible theories, and he had done it with a mind that most considered trapped in silence. As his ALS progressed, Hawking lost the ability to speak entirely. But thanks to technology and unbreakable will, he found a new voice. With a cheek-operated speech synthesizer, he began communicating, first with family and friends, and then with the world. That robotic voice, flat and mechanical, would become iconic. Through it, Hawking gave lectures, delivered interviews, wrote books, and joked with late-night TV hosts. Far from hiding his condition, he embraced it, using his unique voice to teach, inspire, and challenge conventional thinking. In 1988, he published A Brief History of Time, a book that aimed to explain the universe's biggest questions to the average reader. Would the universe expand forever or collapse back into itself? What came before the Big Bang? Is time travel possible? The book became a global bestseller, selling over 25 million copies. It stayed on the Sunday Times bestseller list for a record-breaking 237 weeks. Suddenly, theoretical physics was dinner table conversation. Stephen Hawking had become a pop culture phenomenon. But success didn't dull his curiosity or soften his edge. He continued to push boundaries, not just scientific ones, but also societal. He challenged ableist assumptions, often joking that ALS had made him more efficient. Being disabled, he said, means I don't have to waste time standing in line at airports. He traveled the globe, lecturing at universities, meeting with presidents, and even going on a zero-gravity flight in 2007 at the age of 65. Defying gravity both literally and metaphorically. And yet, behind the fame and genius was a man who endured personal struggles. His marriage to Jane eventually ended, strained by decades of caregiving and public life. He later married his nurse, Elaine Mason, a controversial relationship that also ended in divorce. But through it all, Hawking remained devoted to his children and his work. Even as Stephen Hawking's physical condition deteriorated, his influence in the scientific world only expanded. His presence, whether rolling across the stage at a physics symposium or beaming his synthesized voice through a packed auditorium, commanded attention. People didn't just listen to him because of his disability. They listened because of his clarity, his insight, and his unshakable belief in the power of the human mind. Throughout the 1990s and 2000s, Hawking continued to explore the greatest mysteries of the cosmos. He delved deeper into questions of black hole entropy, information paradoxes, and the origins of time. He wrestled with ideas that bent the limits of space, probability, and reality itself. What happens to information that falls into a black hole? Does it vanish forever, or is it somehow preserved? These weren't just questions of physics, they were questions of philosophy. Hawking's work suggested that if information were truly lost in black holes, it would violate the fundamental laws of quantum mechanics. But reconciling that with the predictions of general relativity was a challenge that stumped even him for decades. He changed his position more than once, famously conceding in 2004 that information might, in fact, escape black holes in a scrambled form, an idea that still sparks debate among physicists today. But Stephen Hawking wasn't just concerned with the fate of stars and particles, he also turned his attention to the fate of humanity. He warned of existential threats: nuclear war, climate change, artificial intelligence. He feared that, unless we changed course, we might doom ourselves long before the universe ends. His solution? To look upward. Hawking became one of the most prominent advocates for space colonization. He argued that humanity must become a multi-planetary species to ensure its survival. He supported efforts like Elon Musk's SpaceX and spoke publicly about the importance of reaching Mars, or even planets beyond our solar system. "I don't think we will survive another 1,000 years without escaping our fragile planet," he said. His message was urgent, not driven by science fiction, but by scientific realism. Despite the gravity of his work, Hawking never lost his sense of humor. He made guest appearances on shows like The Simpsons, Star Trek, The Next Generation, and The Big Bang Theory. He poked fun at himself, participated in bets with fellow scientists, and maintained a playful rivalry with colleagues like Kip Thorne. When he lost wagers, he often paid in humorous ways, once writing an article in Scientific American conceding defeat with wit and grace. He even once threw a mock party for time travelers. He sent out invitations after the party occurred, just to see if anyone would show up. No one did. He concluded with a grin that time travel to the past probably wasn't possible. But beneath the jokes was always a deep reverence for knowledge. "Look up at the stars and not down at your feet," he advised. "Try to make sense of what you see and wonder about what makes the universe exist. Be curious." That spirit of curiosity was contagious. Hawking inspired millions, not just scientists, but students, artists, thinkers, and everyday people who saw in him a reflection of what humanity could be at its best: resilient, brilliant, and compassionate. He authored more books, including The Universe in a Nutshell, The Grand Design, and his memoir, My Brief History. He also launched public lectures online, collaborated with major research institutions, and mentored young physicists, always pushing others to go further than he could. And yet, his health continued to decline. By the final years of his life, he had almost no muscle control, communicating through a single cheek muscle connected to a speech-generating device. Even breathing and swallowing became difficult, but he kept working, he kept speaking, he kept thinking. Stephen Hawking passed away on March 14, 2018, the same date he was born, exactly 76 years earlier. The world mourned not just a scientist, but a symbol. Vigils were held. Tributes poured in from around the globe. His ashes were interred at Westminster Abbey, between the graves of Isaac Newton and Charles Darwin, a final resting place among the giants of science. But his greatest legacy isn't buried beneath stone. It lives on in the questions he asked, in the minds he ignited. In the cosmos, he helped us begin to understand. Stephen Hawking once said, "However difficult life may seem, there is always something you can do and succeed at. It matters that you don't just give up." His life was living proof of that message. He took a diagnosis that should have ended his journey and turned it into the beginning of a mission that touched the stars. He showed us that brilliance is not limited by the body, that wonder doesn't need a voice to be heard, that courage comes not from walking, but from refusing to sit still, intellectually, emotionally, spiritually. He gave the universe a voice. He gave science a heart. He gave humanity a reason to believe. Not in certainty, not in perfection, but in possibility. And in a universe filled with black holes, perhaps that's the greatest light of all.